I am going to recite to you the lyrics of the poem Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lakes, the darkest evening of the year, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy winds and downy flakes. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So, this is a very famous poem by Robert Frost, and it is a 16-line poem which depicts the harsh and difficult winter of the year. It was the winter of 1923. On a dark winter evening, the narrator stops his sledge to watch the snow falling in the woods. The narrator was going slowly along with his horse, facing the blizzard of snow and making his way through the dark and deep woods. When the poet stops his sledge, he looks at the woods and he thought that he knew the owner of the woods. At first, he was worried that the owner of the property will be upset by his appearance. But then he remembers that the owner lives in town and he is free to enjoy the beauty and the snowfall. In the second stanza, the poet says that the horse who was driving his sled was confused by his master's behavior of stopping in a place where there was no farmhouse near. It was but obvious that it was a very cold and snowy night, the darkest evening of the year. The horse found it very strange of his master to stop in such a place where they do not even have shelter. So the horse shakes his bell impatiently to ask if there was some mistake. He wanted to know why his master has suddenly stopped in the middle of nowhere. After a few moments, the narrator reluctantly continues again on his way back on his path to reach his destination. As they were moving along, on one side there were the beautiful woods, and on the other side was the frozen lake, and they were moving along slowly and carefully to reach his destination, which was his own. It was very, very dark, and the snowfall was very harsh. But still, he had to continue on his journey. When they were going, the only sounds that they could hear was of the wind, which was blowing so fast and so loud that they could actually hear the winds and the falling of the snowflakes. The woods were so silent that these two sounds of the wind and the snowflakes falling was very, very audible to the poet. Lastly, the poet says that the woods are extremely beautiful and he can stand there and stare at them for hours. But it was getting dark and he had to continue his journey, and he had to fulfill his promises which he had kept, and he had to go a long way before he retired at his home. The, this poem ends very ambiguously. The reader learns very little about the speaker, from where he is coming to where he is going. Why has he stopped there and why he has to fulfill those promises? It is very strange that the poet has not answered these questions in the poem. It leaves us at a very abrupt end. One can only speculate what is going to happen. Perhaps this was the full intention of the poem's title, Stopping by the Woods. The poem's central narrative is simple and the scenes are very understandable. It is but obvious that there is a traveler who is traveling on a snowy evening and admiring the woods which he passes by. He reflects that the owner of the woods, who lives in the village, will not see him stopping there and watch his woods fill up with snow. And then finally, he remembers that he has to go to his destination and fulfill all the promises that he has made. But the ending has not said that whether he has to go home or has he done his worldly duties and rest in eternal peace.